They watch you. Every time you rise, every time you fall, every time you blink wrong, they watch. Not because they care, but because your existence unsettles them. Because your silence speaks louder than their noise. Because somewhere inside them, they know you were born for something more than mediocrity. But here's the problem. You've been reacting to whispers, to doubt, to delay, to shadows that shouldn't even deserve your attention. You've been spending your power like pocket change on things that never mattered, and it's killing your greatness. Let me ask you something. When did you start giving permission to the world to dictate how you feel? When did you decide that the moods of others would shape the direction of your life? Because here's the truth they never taught you. Power is not loud. Power is not reactive. Power is not emotional chaos. Power is calm. Power is still. Power is control. You think you're strong when you shout back. But the strongest ones in history, they stood still when the storm came. Not because they didn't feel fear, but because they knew fear didn't deserve the wheel. Look at Lincoln, carved by pain, mocked, ridiculed, betrayed, yet still, he moved with unshakable dignity. Not because he was numb, but because he had trained his mind to act as if nothing affected him. And in that act, he became untouchable. Because when you stop reacting, you start ruling. When you stop explaining, you start expanding. When you stop defending yourself against the noise, you start hearing the whisper of your own divine purpose. That is the game. That is the lesson. And most will never play it because it demands too much of their ego. It demands that you stop flinching every time someone frowns at you. It demands that you rise like the sun, unbothered, inevitable, unshaken. It demands that you command yourself with such discipline that even your silence has authority. Not fake confidence, not arrogance, but a stillness that makes people wonder, what does he know that we don't? Why does she walk like the world owes her nothing, but bends anyway? You act as if nothing affects you, not because you are numb, but because you finally learned the world is a mirror, and if you let it shake you, it will own you. But if you rise above it, it will obey you. They called Carnegie cold. They said Ford was impossible to deal with. They said Edison was delusional. They said Disney was a fool. And you know what they all had in common? They ignored them. Not passively, intentionally. They trained their minds to become fortresses. Not bunkers to hide in, fortresses to operate from. Built brick by brick with discipline, clarity, and conviction. You think success is about talent? No. It's about the ability to keep moving forward while the world burns around you. It's about building a mind so stable, so undisturbed, that no insult, no loss, no betrayal can shift your direction. Because when you act as if nothing affects you, you take your power back from everything that once owned it. Their opinion, their doubt, your past, your failure, your fear. You stop living at the mercy of noise. And suddenly, you become the signal. Do you know what happens when a human being stops reacting? They become magnetic. Because power attracts, not the kind that shouts, not the kind that flexes, but the kind that whispers and still gets heard across nations. You don't need to announce yourself. Let your stillness speak. You don't need to prove your value. Let your peace shake them. Because the man who walks through fire and doesn't flinch, he becomes legend. And if you're going to become anything worth remembering in this life, you better start training your soul to be unaffected by the chaos of others. Not because you're disconnected, but because you're finally aligned with something higher than noise. Your mission, your truth, your divine assignment. You were not born to be tossed around like a leaf in the wind. You were born to command the storm, to walk through noise without absorbing it, to feel pressure and grow from it, not fold under it. But no one ever told you how to do that, did they? They taught you how to read, how to write, how to comply, but not how to hold your center when life starts throwing daggers. Not how to protect your inner kingdom from the siege of fear, shame, and doubt. Let me make this clear. If your peace can be stolen by a look, a comment, or a delay, you are not in control of your life. You are a puppet. And the world holds your strings. But here's the good news. You can cut the strings. You can take the throne. And it starts the moment you stop asking the world for permission to feel okay. Stop needing applause to feel worthy. Stop needing agreement to move forward. Stop needing understanding to act. You don't need anyone to validate what's already been placed inside you. Every great mind that ever walked this earth, they had to face rejection, opposition, isolation. But they chose to act as if nothing could touch them, because they understood something the average never will. You do not protect your vision by shouting. You protect your vision by staying rooted. And roots don't move when the wind screams. You want clarity? Then silence the noise. You want progress? Then stop reacting to what doesn't matter. Every reaction costs you. It costs you time. It costs you energy. It costs you focus. And what do you gain from it? A brief moment of ego satisfaction? It's a bad trade. Listen, the lion doesn't turn every time the dog barks. The eagle doesn't argue with the crow. And the sun doesn't dim itself to make the moon comfortable. So why? Why are you shrinking? Why are you explaining your fire to people who've never even lit a match? You say you want peace, then stop giving your emotions to battles that don't deserve you. You say you want legacy, then build it in silence. Discipline yourself so fiercely that even when life breaks you open, you bleed purpose. Do you think stoicism is weakness? You're wrong. Stoicism is a man staring into the jaws of chaos and choosing not to blink. It's a woman carrying the weight of betrayal and still showing up with grace. It's the quiet resolve of a soul that's been to hell and came back carrying heaven in its chest. Don't get it twisted. You're not here to please them. You're here to build something eternal. Your character, your integrity, your vision, your mission. And that requires a level of stillness most people will never reach because they're addicted to noise, addicted to reaction, addicted to validation. But you are not most people. You are the exception. You are the one who walks through the fire and doesn't even smell like smoke. You are the one who builds in silence while they talk in circles. You are the one who keeps going when others would beg for mercy. Because somewhere deep inside you, the more calm you become, the more powerful you get. It's not just emotional maturity. It's strategy. When you don't flinch, you confuse them. When you don't react, you control the frame. When you don't chase, they come to you. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. Let them try to figure you out. You just keep building, with focus, with grace, with unwavering silence, because your stillness is your weapon. And when you master it, you become unstoppable. You were never supposed to react to everything. You were supposed to choose. Choose what deserves your attention. Choose what gets access to your mind. Choose what gets space in your heart. But most people live in emotional poverty, handing out their energy like candy at a parade, reacting to every critic, every inconvenience, every petty storm. And they wonder why their dreams stay stuck in neutral. Because if your emotions run you, your destiny will betray you. Look around. The giants, the real ones, they're not moved by noise. They move in silence, make noise through results. And while others chase dopamine hits from likes and arguments, they chase something bigger, mastery. Let me remind you, when Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times, he didn't go online and post about his haters. He didn't crumble under doubt. He didn't need applause. He just kept showing up as if success was already his. as if failure didn't faze him, as if the world's opinion couldn't touch his mission. That's not delusion. That's control. That's command. That's the mindset of someone who refuses to be owned by circumstance. That's what you need now, because you can't build an empire if you're still trying to win every emotional argument. You can't write your legacy if you're stuck responding to every whisper of doubt. You have to rise. You have to own your energy, and you have to stop giving it to people who've never built anything themselves. You don't owe them a reaction. You owe your future your focus. The next time you feel triggered, remember this. Every reaction is a choice. The moment someone disrespects you, you get to decide. Do I lower myself and hand them my power? Or do I stand taller, so tall they have to look up just to see me walk away? The choice is always yours. And if you want to become someone that moves the world, you need to act like someone the world can't move. That's what discipline really is. Not cold, not robotic, but deliberate. You become a master of yourself, so no one else gets to steer your ship. Even when the winds howl, even when the waves rise, even when the crew doubts you, because that's leadership. That's courage. That's what it means to be the captain of your own fate. Don't just read Napoleon Hill. Live him. Live the philosophy of purpose, faith, initiative, imagination, persistence. He never said the journey would be easy. He said it would be worth it, but only for those who refuse to bow to circumstance, refuse to collapse under criticism, refuse to trade their vision for comfort. You can't expect the world to follow you if you're still flinching every time it speaks. You want to be great? Then train yourself to be still, to respond instead of react, to build instead of break, to move with purpose, not emotion, to act as if nothing affects you, not because you're numb, but because you've decided that your inner world is more powerful than anything happening around you. And that's the truth, isn't it? You're not here to be average. You're not here to be tossed around by the noise of a fragile society. You are here to lead, to become, to evolve, to transcend. And you can't do that while you're still owned by your triggers. So don't just chase discipline, become it. Don't just pray for peace, build it inside yourself. Don't just read books on greatness, be the story others read one day. The man who walks through chaos and stays grounded. The woman who faces pressure and doesn't crack. That's who history remembers. And that's who you're becoming if you choose it. They'll test you. They'll throw stones just to see if you bleed. They'll push your buttons just to watch you fall apart. Because they don't understand your silence. They don't understand how you can be so composed when everything is burning. And when people don't understand something, they try to break it. Don't let them. You are not here to explain your peace to people who've only known chaos. You are not here to defend your calm in a world addicted to noise. You are not here to be understood. You're here to be remembered. And no one remembers the one who reacted to every insult. They remember the one who kept building while the world crumbled. They remember the man who stood in court, falsely accused, yet kept his dignity. They remember the woman who was laughed at, underestimated, yet never lost her grace. They remember the ones who didn't scream for attention because they were too busy earning legacy. So when the voices get louder, you get quieter. When the storm gets stronger, you get still. When the world tries to shake you, you anchor yourself deeper. This is where few ever go. This is where greatness is born. See, anyone can look strong when life is easy. But the real ones, they are built in fire. They are forged in silence. They are sculpted by restraint. Because reacting is easy. It's addictive. It's emotional junk food. You feel momentarily justified, but long-term, you lose your power. And power is the real prize. Not attention, or not applause, not agreement. Power over your mind. Power over your spirit. Power over your reactions. That's what separates the king from the crowd, the legend from the lost, the leader from the loud. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them misunderstand you. Your mission is not to change their minds. Your mission is to stay so focused, so centered, so locked in, that their words bounce off your peace like pebbles on a fortress wall. This is what warriors do. They don't swing wildly. They choose their battles. They conserve their strength. They move with precision, not panic. And when the moment comes, when it really counts, they unleash everything they built in silence. You think a samurai draws his sword for every insult? No. He knows his power. He knows his discipline. And that's what makes him dangerous. Because the one who doesn't flinch, the one who doesn't react, the one who waits, watches, and moves when it's time, that one is unstoppable. Be that. Be so focused they think you're cold. Be so disciplined they call you distant. Be so calm they wonder if you even feel. You feel. But you've mastered the art of transmutation. You've learned how to turn chaos into clarity, pain into purpose, pressure into power. That's what separates the few from the many. Not luck, not background, not chance, but the ability to stay unshaken when the world expects you to break. So the next time life tests you, don't flinch, don't fold, don't fight back just to be right. Stand up, stand still, stand firm. Let your silence be the loudest answer they've ever heard. Because when you act as if nothing affects you, you don't just protect your peace, you project it. You become a mirror so clear, they start to see themselves. You become a presence so strong, their chaos falls apart in your calm. And that, my friend, is the beginning of legacy. There comes a moment when the noise fades, when the drama dies down, when the voices grow tired of trying to shake you. And in that moment, there is silence. Not emptiness, not weakness, power. Because when you've trained yourself to be still while others flail, when you've chosen to act instead of react, when you've mastered the sacred pause between trigger and response, you step into a realm few ever reach. Self-command. Do you understand what that means? It means no one can hijack your energy. It means no crisis can drag you off course. It means no person, no failure, no disappointment can pull you from your throne. You stop being a passenger. You become the architect. You stop responding to life like a victim. You start designing it like a visionary. That's the difference. The average man gets insulted and spends a week rehearsing comebacks. The uncommon man smiles, nods, and keeps building. Why? Because legacy doesn't argue. It executes. You want to know how to rise? Then understand this. You don't rise by being louder. You rise by becoming so focused, so clear, so unshakable in your intention that the noise drowns itself. Let them guess what you're thinking. Let them assume you're weak because you didn't lash out. Let them believe you're unaffected because that's your edge. You are affected. You just know how to turn pain into patience, frustration into fuel, setbacks into silence, and silence into strategy. This is not emotional suppression. This is emotional mastery. It's the difference between reacting like a matchstick and responding like a mountain. A matchstick flares, then dies. A mountain absorbs a storm, then rises higher. Be the mountain. Do you think Martin Luther King reacted to every insult thrown at him? Do you think Mandela, locked away for 27 years, wasted his energy on hate? No. They chose to become bigger than what tried to break them. They chose the higher path. They chose power, not pettiness. And that is a choice you must make every day. To walk with grace, to speak with purpose, to move with dignity. Because when you act as if nothing affects you, you're not denying reality. You're redefining your relationship with it. You're saying, I am not what happens to me. I am what I choose to become in the face of it. And that changes everything. You stop being reactive. You become creative. You stop being a victim of energy. You become the source of it. Let others gossip. Let others post and rage and spiral. You, you stay still. Still like water until it's time to move. And when you move, it's a flood. But until then, you sit quietly in the presence of your own power, knowing that nothing, not words, not wounds, not weakness, can touch you unless you open the door. So don't let your peace be rented out to every fool with an opinion. Don't let your clarity be traded for comfort. Don't let your mission be interrupted by someone who hasn't earned the right to distract you. Because every second spent reacting is a second lost in building. And you, my friend, are here to build something timeless. Not just a life, a legacy. One that will stand long after the critics go quiet. One that will echo even when the applause stops. One that was forged not in noise, but in mastery. And mastery begins with this. Control your inner world and the outer world bows. You will be misunderstood. You will be criticized. You will be underestimated. But none of that is a curse. It's a test. A test of how much noise you're willing to ignore to protect your signal. You see, every legend walked through a phase where nobody believed. Every visionary sat in rooms where no one listened. Every builder laid bricks while the world mocked the foundation. But they kept going, not because they were blind, but because they were unshakable. They didn't act unaffected because they didn't care. They acted unaffected because they cared more than anyone else could understand. They cared more about the mission than the moment. More about the vision than the voice of doubt. More about where they were going than where they were standing. That's your edge. To live in the future while others are stuck in the past. To act from purpose while others react from pain. To hold the storm inside your chest and still walk like sunlight. That's the power of restraint. And it's rare, so rare that when people see it, they mistake it for arrogance. Let them. Let them misunderstand your peace. Let them twist your silence into pride. Let them call your calmness a mask, because they don't know what it took to build it. They didn't see the nights you sat with your thoughts, wrestling demons no one else could see. They didn't hear the doubts clawing at your mind. They didn't feel the heat of betrayal burning your back while you smiled and moved forward anyway. That's why your calm confuses them, because it wasn't given. It was earned. Earned through loss, through heartbreak, through years of showing up when you didn't feel like it. So now when you walk into a room with steady eyes and unshaken breath, understand this. You are not cold. You are not distant. You are trained. And your presence speaks louder than their volume ever will. This world tries to make you believe that reaction is strength, that shouting proves conviction, that clapping back means you're powerful. It's a lie. True power is silent. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It simply becomes undeniable. The more you react, the more you reveal where your wounds are. But the more still you become, the more they wonder how deep your strength goes. And that wondering, that confusion, that's influence. You don't need to fight for attention. You don't need to beg for respect. Respect is magnetized to those who refuse to need it. So stop trying to be loud. Start becoming clear. Clear in your mind. Clear in your values. Clear in your movement. Because clarity breeds authority. And the clearest voice in the room is often the one that speaks last, or not at all. If your vision can be knocked down by a comment, it was never a vision. It was an ego trip. But if your purpose is rooted deep, deep like oak, deep like steel, deep like bloodline, then let them try. Let them throw noise at your name. Let them twist your intentions. Let them circle your throne, waiting for you to break. They will wait forever. Because you know who you are. You know what you carry. You know where you're going. And that's why you act as if nothing affects you, because in truth, nothing can. The storm is not your enemy. It's your mirror. It shows you exactly where your peace ends and your ego begins. Most people flinch at the first sign of chaos. They abandon their plans, question their worth, beg for reassurance. Not you. You're not building yourself for comfort. You're building yourself for command. And command is not found in the absence of pressure. It's forged under it. That's why the Navy SEAL trains in freezing water. That's why the monk meditates in solitude. That's why the master keeps showing up long after the student gives up. Because the goal isn't to escape pressure. The goal is to become someone who cannot be broken by it. You want to be elite? Then stop practicing collapse. Every time you let frustration speak for you, you weaken the muscle of focus. Every time you let fear choose for you, you hand over the steering wheel to failure. Every time you let offense dictate your energy, you tell the world you're still fragile. You must stop doing that. You must stop letting small things own you. Your mission is too big. Your calling is too high. Your capacity is too deep. And that's exactly why they'll try to pull you down, because they can't reach where you're headed. You weren't born to be normal. You were born to be remembered. Not because you were the loudest, but because you were the most composed in a room full of chaos. There's a kind of man who walks into a space and says nothing and still shifts the energy. There's a kind of woman whose eyes speak volumes without ever raising her voice. That's the presence of someone who's mastered themselves. That's the magnetism of a soul who doesn't flinch. Do you want to know what power really is? It's not being liked. It's not being feared. It's being unmovable. It's knowing who you are to the point where opinions pass through you, like wind through glass. It's waking up with a mind so focused, a heart so anchored, a vision so loud inside your chest that nothing external can shake what you've built internally. And here's the secret they never tell you. The world bends not to those who shout, but to those who stay still when shouted at. They lose their minds trying to get a rise out of you. You win by never rising, unless it's higher. Let them project. Let them provoke. Let them spin in circles. You stay rooted, like a lighthouse. Because storms will come and winds will scream, but the lighthouse never apologizes for standing still. It shines, it waits, and it endures. That's you. You're no longer the one searching for calm. You've become the calm. You're no longer the one chasing respect. You've become the standard for it. And when you walk like that, you walk in divine authority. Not arrogance, not superiority, but sacred alignment. You've chosen peace over pride, focus over feeling, legacy over ego. And that choice? That's what separates the distracted from the destined. So keep building your center, what they wore, where they went, how they lived, as if watching them would somehow build you. But what if the key to power was never out there? What if the entire game changes the moment you do one thing, the moment you stop obsessing over them and start mastering you? This is what happens when you finally mind your own business. Because there is a line, a thin, invisible boundary between mediocrity and greatness. And that line is drawn in focus. Not just focus on your goals, but focus on your growth. Every empire ever built began with a decision to go inward, to reject the noise, to stop asking the world for permission, and to start asking yourself, who am I becoming? On mindset and inner discipline. You don't need 1,000 opinions. You need one vision. And you will never hear it until you stop listening to the crowd. Carnegie didn't build steel by studying gossip. Ford didn't invent the automobile by watching what the neighbors were driving. Disney didn't craft empires from cartoons by watching how the world laughed. They tuned out the world and tuned in to the work. When you truly mind your own business, it's not just about ignoring drama. It's about creating a mindset so disciplined, so locked in, that the outside world becomes background noise. And in that silence, in that quiet space where you're no longer watching them, you start seeing you. That's when the blueprint reveals itself. Because success is not a sprint, it's a shift from reacting to building, a shift from comparison to creativity, a shift from waiting to becoming. Your mind is a garden, and every moment you spend watching someone else's life, you're watering their garden instead of yours. You can't grow what you don't feed, and you can't build what you don't believe in. So you've got to make a decision. Will you keep feeding the scroll, or will you finally feed your soul on belief, identity, and the root of greatness? Greatness doesn't begin with a strategy. It begins with belief. Belief that who you are becoming matters more than what they are doing. Belief that you were born with a purpose far too sacred to be diluted by comparison. When Lincoln faced the darkness of a divided nation, he didn't scroll through criticism. He stayed rooted in vision. Even when the noise was deafening, even when they called him foolish, he minded his own business, his soul's business, because that's what it means to truly mind your business. It means to return to the fire within, to protect it, to cultivate it, to refuse to let the world snuff it out with distractions. The world will try to make you forget. Forget who you are. Forget what you carry. Forget why you even started. But you weren't made for the sidelines. You were made for the center of your calling. And every second you spend caught up in someone else's journey, you delay your own. So hear me when I say this. Your business, your real business, isn't your company, your profile, or your paycheck. It's your becoming. And your becoming starts when you reclaim your attention on clarity, vision, and detachment. You will never rise until you learn to release. Release the need to be seen. Release the thirst for validation. Release the addiction to distraction disguised as entertainment. Because the moment you unplug from the noise, you'll realize something terrifyingly beautiful. You've been carrying power all along, you just handed it out like candy. But no more. This is the hour you take it back. You get quiet. You get clear. And you remember that the people who changed the world never did it by chasing trends. They did it by locking themselves in the lab of self. They did it by going so deep into their craft that the world had no choice but to notice. Michelangelo said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." And you are the marble. And clarity is the chisel, but the chiseling hurts. It costs you comfort. It costs you popularity. It costs you distraction. But what it gives you is vision. Not a vague dream, not a motivational quote, but a crystal clear roadmap of where you're going, who you're becoming, and what must die inside you so that something greater can be born. On purpose in the fire of obsession. Purpose doesn't whisper. It burns. It doesn't politely knock at the door. It kicks it down if you're quiet enough to hear it. But you cannot hear your calling while you're tangled in theirs. You cannot find your voice while echoing theirs. Your purpose was handcrafted for your soul, not for your followers, not for your family, not even for their approval. And that's why most people will never find it, because they're too busy managing other people's perceptions instead of managing their own potential. Purpose is the flame. Obsession is the fuel. But clarity is the match. When you mind your business, when you cut the noise, the envy, the external obsession, your vision goes from foggy to laser-focused. That's when something wild starts to happen. You stop asking, "What do they think?" And you start declaring, "This is who I am." And from that moment on, everything changes. You stop dabbling. You stop doubting. You stop delaying. You start showing up with fire in your eyes and steel in your spine, not to impress them, not to chase attention, but to honor the assignment on your life. Do you know what it looks like when a human being lives with that kind of obsession? Look at Edison. 10,000 failures before one light bulb. They called him mad. He called it progress. He wasn't minding anyone else's business. He was busy building destiny. You weren't created to spectate. You were born to ignite on discipline and daily practice. Discipline is not punishment. It's devotion. Devotion to something higher than impulse. Devotion to your future self. Devotion to the version of you who is watching and waiting to see what you'll choose today. Every morning you wake up as a vote. A vote for who you will become. So ask yourself, who are you voting for? Are you voting for the distracted you? The reactive you? The approval-chasing you? Or the disciplined you? The focused you? The unshakable, purpose-driven you? Because success is built in quiet, boring, brutal repetitions. It's the invisible work that no one claps for, but that builds the kind of foundation no storm can break. Look at Kobe Bryant. He shot 1,000 free throws a day while the world slept. That's not talent. That's obedience to greatness. And if you want that kind of impact, you don't need applause. You need discipline. You don't need to be seen. You need to build. So build your mind. Build your rituals.